Today I'm joined by mom, homeschooler, and the voice behind Injecting Truth, Angela. First, congratulations on your pregnancy.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for being here, considering that you're 8 to 9 months pregnant. Because last time we spoke, like, I'm going to be 8 or 9 months. I might not be able to make it, but here you are. So it's
Yeah.
still in.
Yeah, I'm 39 weeks today.
Oh,
So,
geez.
yeah, we'll see how if he wants to show up or not anytime soon. Yeah.
So anytime at this point, but that's great. Good for you. Great smile, by the way. You seem to be very happy. I don't remember my wife being that impressed when she was that far along. But thanks for making the time. Your main area of expertise is obviously vaccine because that's all we talk about on this podcast series. So I'm gonna start you with an easy one just to make you very comfortable. What would you say are the top three biggest lies being told by big pharma?
Well, I mean, yeah. It's easy, but it's not easy to answer because it's almost like there's so many, right? Versus just the
Top three.
three, top three.
Let's let.
I would
I'll
I would
give
say
you top
safety.
five if you
Oh,
want to. I'll give you five.
I would say for sure safety. Like things that I think back about when I first started this journey myself, because like just a little background of myself and kind of how I got into this. I'll get to the question, but I started out in the medical field completely believing everything. And along the way, different things happened to me that made me realize some of what I've been told wasn't true. And I think when you start to kind of learn these things, at first, there is that little bit of like, this can't really be true. Like if this is true, everybody would know. Like they're not
Mhm.
this good. It's like if Santa Claus doesn't exist, how do the kids like you know what I mean? Like there's just something that's broken there. Like does it make sense? So for me, the first thing was when I learned about the safety or lack thereof, that was really something that I was like, you're kidding me when they say they're thoroughly tested and it's been like in my mind when I think oh thoroughly tested long term, you look at some like Lipitor or Viagra or some of these other drugs on the market that are tested for years and years and years and have huge groups. Vaccines aren't the same at all. They're tested for days, at max 6 months. The control groups are super small. There's no placebo. So like when you're really injecting something into this precious little healthy child, you want to make sure that it's been thoroughly tested, that it's not going to cause harm because they're not able to tell you, hey, mom, I don't feel the same as I did yesterday. You know what I mean? So, like, when I saw that, that was something that kind of just really rocked me to the core. And then also, I think I was a little disillusioned by the ingredients. So, I think that would probably be the second thing because I don't know if I had this like fairy tale idea that it was a little bit of saline and some dead virus, and your body does like a little magic inside, and whoopty, now you have this immunity because it was just a small part of the virus, and you're good to go. When I started looking at like the inserts and what's in them, and excipient summaries, and just kept looking further and further. I'm also a Christian, so looking at the aspect of like the aborted fetal DNA, like I was appalled knowing that. And then I think probably the last part is that besides all of this, if something does happen, at least you feel like comfort in knowing you can do something about it. Like you would think. You would think you could do something about it. That's what I would say. But you can't. Like you can sue our own government. I don't know how exactly it works in Canada, but um, we can't just be like, oh, listen, the manufacturer made a mistake. They could have made it safer. My child was injured. I trusted you. Something happened. Now I have this broken child. I need some support. That doesn't happen. So I would say if I'll leave it to three, those are the three ones that kind of like jaw dropped on the floor. I can't believe this is really how this industry operates.
They have the same immunity in Canada. It's no different. It's absolutely the same here. We even have a program that's called VISP, Vaccine Injury Report, Vaccine Injury SP. I can't program, obviously, I can't remember what the S stands for, but it's government funded. So basically, not only is Big Pharma completely protected by government, if you are injured by a vaccine, taxpayers' money are going to flip the bill. Good luck proving it, though, because unlike the US, you guys will say doctors in the US will say that you were vaccine injured. In Canada, it's almost an impossibility. Like, good luck finding someone. Most of the people that have very bad, very, very bad things happen to them after a vaccine have to go to the US in order to have somebody identify it as potentially done by a vaccine. In Canada, it's like, yeah, I think it was Aaron Siri. I had Aaron Siri on the podcast 2 weeks ago, and I'm pretty sure he's the one that said that the biggest religion is not Christianity. I'm paraphrasing here, but I'm like,
I mean, I believe it. Yeah. The
it's
longer
easier to
you,
question Christ than it is to question vaccination.
I mean, the longer you're in this conversation, the more you realize how it is such a strong belief. Like when I first started talking out, it was probably 2018 because it was right after my son had his reaction. And in doing that, the world was definitely different than it is now. Like there's a different feel happening today. And you brought it up then. I mean, it could be your best friend. And I mean, I've lost many friends and family members who weren't super excited about it at the beginning, but like you just so wholeheartedly believe. And I don't know if it's because it's, you know, spoken into you over and over and over again or what, but I find the ones that get the angriest are the ones that haven't actually looked at anything themselves. They've just taken the word of someone else, because I'm always like, let's have that conversation. Let's talk about it. Like, why not? Like, to me, if you have the truth, you're not afraid to talk about it. You know?
I couldn't agree with you more. I do a lot of these type of interviews and a lot of political stuff, and I always prove what I'm talking about. Yet people will question it, say that it can't be true. No, you don't want it to believe it. There's a very big difference between not being true and not wanting to swallow the red pill. It's a big pill to swallow for most people, but people don't realize, or at least a lot of people don't realize, that there's no double blind studies, because you were referring to that earlier. There's no, and for the people that don't know what a double blind study, it's the gold standard. It's basically you have to have a version of the vaccine, in this case that would be complete, just silent, just something that has nothing in it. You don't tell the patients, and the patients, and then you see what the results are. But we don't even do that. So, and everything tends to be fast tracked when it comes to vaccine, because there's always emergencies, right? Let me ask you this, because I knew from the stuff that you posted on your Instagram that your child had an adverse reaction to his 2 months injections. Did you get questioned by the doctor saying, oh, how would you know, or it's not possible, like you don't spend enough time? I could tell right now, if something happened to my son that you injected something and he wasn't the same, I could tell you right away. I work from home, so does my wife. So he's always around either one of us. So I would know right away if there was something different with my son. Did you get questioned? Did people
I mean,
worry about it, or you don't know what you're talking about? What was the reaction?
Obviously, I was a first-time mom. So I feel like that puts you in a different category to doctors. Like you're still hypersensitive, you're nervous, you don't necessarily know what you're talking about, you're overreacting. So you're already kind of pigeonholed a little bit into that conversation to be that way. But with him, I mean, so he was born at 36 weeks. So he really shouldn't have gotten anything, because he's like not even supposed to be out of the womb yet, right? So we denied the Hep B initially. Then at 1 month he got it, and he seemed to be okay from what I saw. And then at his 2 month, he had the regular round of all of the vaccines. And luckily it was like a localized reaction at the time. He had like a big granuloma on his leg, super red, swelling, fever. He ended up being like extremely colicky, screaming like a scream I have never heard before. And it just was one of those like immediate, like something is very, very wrong here, and this doesn't feel right. And I remember feeling like in my soul, like I made a mistake because something doesn't seem right. So I called the office and I said, he hasn't stopped screaming since we left. His leg is now really swollen. It's hot. Like, you know, and me being in the medical field, I did have an idea of like kind of things to do, but it was different. So I called. They tried to brush me off. Like, you know, that's normal. Nothing, you're overreacting. It's completely fine. He's fine. Don't worry about it. And I was like, okay, like, I don't feel right about it. But what I did was, instead of just listening to the nothing's wrong side of the conversation, I reached out to a family member of mine who didn't vaccinate. And I just was like, listen, I need some more information because I don't know what to do here. Something doesn't feel right. So she directed me to a naturopath who I've never, like, that was not my jam at all. Like, that was totally different than what I was used to. So when I saw her, she's the one that said, listen, we need to approach this differently. You need to learn about vaccines. And she gave me like my first little crumb of vaccine information. And that's really what catapulted me to kind of look into it more. And after doing that research, like just for that 1 month before he was supposed to go back, or 2 months before his next appointment, I kind of knew, like, I don't think I want to continue. Like, it just doesn't feel right. What I'm learning, if it's true, is really alarming. But I still had like this weird, like, trust in the system. So I said, you know what? Let me just talk to the pediatrician. I think I had this, again, like, just idea that I would go in, I'd have a conversation, they'd tell me the truth, and it would be great. And then we could stay there and whatever. Well, when I walked in, it was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Like, the woman that we saw was one of our favorite doctors. We like vetted them before, we met them, we went there for pre-birth classes. And when I was in there and I said to her, you know, listen, I'm concerned about XYZ, you know, you can see just the aggression on her face to say, how dare you ask me? Like, I'm the authority. I'm telling you what you need to do. And you're coming to me with questions that some mom with a paper and a list. And I said to her, listen, I'm not saying I'm doing it or not. I just literally wanted to have a conversation about what's going on here. And it went so poorly. She wanted me to sign this waiver to tell, basically, she said, like, if you sign this, you're okay with your child dying when you leave here, because, you know, like, any of these diseases are really going to kill my child in the next week. And she said, if you don't come back in a week, don't come back at all. And I was like, well, I guess I'm not coming back at all then, because, like, if that's how I'm going to be treated and I'm just asking questions, it just felt so wrong. And that really, like, if they would have handled that better, I don't know where things would have went. I probably still wouldn't have vaccinated, but it wouldn't have, I think, pushed me as far into the other direction to be like, listen, I really need to look into this because this is offsettling. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's, you know, we normally spend half of our time in the US, Alabama, like we spend our winters down there. And we had a midwife. When my wife learned she was pregnant, we just got to Alabama, so we were there for 6 months. So she found a midwife and we dealt with her the whole time we were there. We even dealt with her when we came back to Canada, but she was just great. She is as nature intended. Like, she believes that pregnancy or giving birth is not a medical emergency. It's 100% natural. It doesn't need to be rushed. It will happen. No matter what, it will happen. Unless there's something very, very wrong, it will happen. Just relax, wait for it. It will come. But when we got here, absolutely night and day. We went to see her probably 6, 7 times, like once a month, give or take. And she was always asking my wife, like, how are you feeling? How are you sleeping? Are you still able to exercise? Do you have pain anywhere? Like, really, what is your state of mind? What are you eating? How are you feeling? And when we got to Canada, we have a public healthcare system here. So we contacted the government. They put us in touch with a woman doctor, and all of her questions when we met her were about, did you get that vaccine? Did you do this? Did you do that? It was all about, did you get vaccinated? Are you going to clamp? We're going to clamp fast. Are you giving the placenta? Can we take some of the, it's no mention of how do you feel, no mention about what you're eating, like the complete opposite. And it's blew my mind. It absolutely, you hear the stories, but until you're in it, it's hard for you to believe it. And I remember when my son was born, he was born at 4.8 pounds. Like, he was born super small, and it was like 37 weeks. So he shouldn't have been that small. So he was under observation for 4 days because he couldn't produce sugar. He couldn't,
The glucose.
yeah, he had very low glucose. So he had to be monitored. So I stayed in a camping chair for 4 days straight, and I slept there because I did not trust the medical staff not to inject him, because
I
we
mean, you
told them
have
from the
to.
gig.
Yeah.
Yeah, So let me ask you this: considering that you're pregnant right now and you've been through it before, so you kind of have an idea of the process at least, are you expecting to have to push back during your delivery, during your birth? Are you doing it at the hospital or you're doing it more of a natural way? Because I can tell you, we were ready. We knew what to expect. We had a plan. We were prepared. I'm 6'1" to 30. Like, I'm a big guy. And I was not there to take care of my wife. I was there to make sure they did not touch my son, that he was never out of my view, and to reiterate that you're not injecting her with anything and you're not injecting him with anything. And if you're not okay with that, I'll kick you out of here. Like, this is my job. So are you prepared mentally for what's coming?
I mean, as much as I can be, but like, but I realistically, this is my fourth. Okay,
Oh, there you go.
they've all been hospital births, and so will this, unfortunately. But it's just kind of with other things I have going on, it's the best for us, which isn't ideal, but it is what it is. But from previous experiences, like, you learn a little bit more with every pregnancy. Like, the first was just a mess, right? And then the next one got a little bit better, they're a little bit whatever. But I will say, like, upon entering the hospital, one of the things that I do is I sign all of the declinations immediately. I learned this because with my second, I signed, like, we don't do vitamin K, obviously no
Nope.
vaccines, right? And then I do, like, no eye ointment, delayed cord clamping, like truly delayed cord clamping, not just like a minute. Like, that's a
I'll
joke.
tell you when.
Yeah, yeah.
You can leave. I'll tell you when it's
Yeah,
ready.
yeah, like, all of these different things. But as far as, like, signing the declinations, I'm so glad that I do those immediately, because if you don't, it's part of the normal practice to just do those things
Yep.
here. So if you don't sign that you say no, then it's kind of like a yes, right? And also, who knows what's going to happen? And I mean, I would still never let the baby out of my sight. Like, my husband knows to never, ever, ever leave the baby. Like, regardless of what's going on, that is you need to be there. But outside of that, with my second, I ended up having to do an emergency C-section. And they had to knock me out. Like, it was like a really aggressive birth. And when I was coming out of anesthesia, they were trying to get me to recant the signatures that I already did. And I'm like, first of all, that is unethical. Like, you cannot do that in this state that I'm in right now, especially given the medication that I was given or whatever. But I mean, my husband jokes, he's like, it was an exorcism. He's like, you kind of came out and just like blurted everything out and they got scared and ran away. But like, that doesn't happen to everybody. So you have
No.
to prepare. You have to have a plan. You have to make sure like your spouse or whoever's coming with you is on the same page. You can reiterate it to the nurse, make sure it's into the chart, because and I'm sure Aaron's already talked about this, but like, there's people that, regardless of signing those things, they still do it anyway, whether they don't do, like, purposefully or not. Like, they can still give your child those things. So you need to make sure that that's all in there. That's why you don't leave the baby. And then you can always request their medical records after you're discharged, because especially now with all the electronic medical charting, you're going to know if they did something that they weren't supposed to, because they have to scan it, taken out of the PIC system, given to your child, right? But these are things that you definitely want to monitor and be on top of. So I feel like we're already there that way. I do have a doula. So in case I'm like struggling because I'm doing natural, and this is going to be the first time around for that for me. So if I'm in a place where mentally I can't be my normal advocate self, I have somebody else there. Not that my husband can't do it, but it's just nice to have a tag team. So really setting myself up as much as I possibly can for success ahead of time is really the goal.
A doula is something. My mother-in-law came and she was there. She has 3 kids, so she knew what to expect. And she dealt with my wife while I was dealing with just my child. I don't want to scare you for what's coming, but my wife did it naturally. She pushed for 4 hours, not contraction for 4 hours, pushed for 4 hours. I've gained a lot of respect because I used to call my wife kind of a pansy. I recanted.
I
I
mean,
recanted that one.
my other births, even though they weren't natural all the way, I lost the epidural halfway with all of them. So I feel like if I could do, we'll see
Oh,
how
I'm
this
sure.
goes. But I feel like I've already been through a lot before. So,
But I would really, the point I was trying to make is that my wife would like a doula for the next time too.
mhm.
Although now we know what to expect, we know that we can stick to our guns. It's not going to be a big deal. But to have somebody there just to manage the situation in case something happens where you're not in the right state of mind, whatever that might be, because that's a great suggestion for the people out there to
Well,
have somebody, a professional that's there just to make sure that your plan is respected.
and not even that, but like in times of high stress, you're not thinking of like what's the risk benefit to this intervention.
No.
And someone like a doula, that especially someone that doula is at a hospital, if that's where you're going to be at, like that's I purposely wanted to have someone that does this regularly at a hospital, because when they come in and say, hey, it's time for a cervical check, hey, it's time for this, it's like whatever they come in for, you can say, listen, give me a minute, and you can talk to your doula and kind of have a better understanding of like, is this really necessary, is it not, just so you feel better about that. Because I feel like same thing with vaccines, like everything is like you got to make a decision now or your child's
Yep.
going to die immediately, and you feel like you're like, if I don't make a decision, something horrible is going to happen. But I would say 99% of the time you can take a breath, think about it, and then make a decision. So having somebody to even just give you statistics and real world, like, do I need to do this or do I not, is super helpful as well.
You're making a good point because that's something I wanted to ask. I remember at least when I was growing up, pregnancy used to be seen as a sacred time. Mothers and pregnant women understood that everything they put in their bodies will affect your child that you're carrying within you. How do you think the vaccine industry convinced pregnant women to take up to 7 vaccines? We're talking influenza, Tdap, COVID-19, RSV, and the Hep B, while telling pregnant women that it is safe and effective, but you got to be careful about what you eat because you could hurt the baby. But 7 vaccines, don't question about it. This is totally normal. How
I
did that
think
happen?
I think it falls into two different areas. One, like being pregnant, you're so vulnerable to, you want to do everything you possibly can to protect this baby and to not lose the baby and to everything. So when someone else seems to know more than you in a certain situation, like you're not the OB, you're not whatever, you think, okay, they're telling me this is how I keep my baby safe. Just like how we tricked a whole generation to vaccinate their children. Same thing. Like, in what world is putting toxins into something going to get something healthy out? You know, but you believe it because you're told by a professional or by an expert or trusting the science or whatever the stupid slogan is, that this is what you need to do to get your baby healthy, to maintain a healthy pregnancy. So I think that that's one part of the conversation. And then the other part is that just like we assume safety with the childhood vaccines, we assume safety with these vaccines, right? Because I remember when I denied my Tdap and my flu my last pregnancy, the provider was like confused. Like, she's like, what do you're not going to do these? And I was like, no, I'm not going to do these. And then when she asked why, I said, did you ever look at any of the inserts of these? Because they've never been tested on pregnant women. Like, that was not part of the process. So how can you in good conscience tell me that this is something that I need to maintain safety when the manufacturers itself doesn't even know if it's safe to give to me? You're recommending it off label to me in certain situations and certain vaccines. And she was like, didn't believe me till she looked at it herself. Like the Tdap vaccine, for example, that was recommended on a whim. Like in 2011, there was an outbreak of whooping cough in California, of all places. So instead of just saying, like, let's do better at protecting these people and the babies, they said, how about we start recommending it to pregnant women? Because then we could probably bridge the gap, get the babies protected, get mom protected, whatever. Maybe it made, like, it was a good guess, but they never actually did any safety studies before they started recommending it. They just said, we think this is going to work, cocooning, whatever. But now when they actually look at the data surrounding that Tdap vaccine during pregnancy, first of all, there's a lot of aluminum in that, which, why would you want to do that? That's going to get into the baby. Like, we're worried about, like you said, lunch meat. Okay. No. And then outside of that, when you look at the studies to say, okay, well, am I actually protecting the baby? How does that work? The only antibodies that baby has is maybe about 2 months. And then after that, it drastically drops down. And I mean, we could have a whole nother conversation about this too, but just having antibodies and titers in your blood doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean you're actually protected against the illness. Tdap, because it's acellular, doesn't actually produce the robust immune response that you would getting whooping cough naturally. But anyway, you drop down after 2 months, right? And then say you decide you want to give your child their primary series of Tdap, like, or their DTaP after that. Realistically, you are blunting their response for at least a year after that. So I don't think that that's even part of the conversation. So now not only are you taking the risk while you're pregnant, injecting aluminum and who knows what else, you're creating the mother to be an asymptomatic carrier of whooping cough in for the rest of your life. You can't change that. It's called original antigenic sin is the name of like that process. So now mom can inadvertently give baby whooping cough because of her being vaccinated with the acellular vaccine. And if you do decide you want to try to give your baby the vaccine, which I'm not recommending either, but if you decide to do that, now you're also blunting the effects of that for a full year, at least. You know what I mean? So like these are all things that I highly doubt most OBs know or are sharing during that office visit. Yeah.
Just the fact that you can't question to me is wrong. I don't even care what you have to say. If I cannot question you,
Mm-hmm.
that I need to accept blindly whatever you say because you're supposed to know better, right then and there, I'm not listening. You lost my attention. I will never listen to you again. And that's exactly what's happening with vaccine. They are safe and effective. And if you dare criticize, you could lose your job, you could lose your friends, you could lose everything around you for criticizing. And that goes for doctors too. I know
Yeah.
plenty of doctors that lost their whole career because of this. Did you I'm sure you've met many of them, but have you lost respect for doctors because of what you learned since 2018? Do you still put them on a pedestal? Because I feel, and there's no way for me to quantify the question I'm asking you, but I can tell you from the thousands and tens of thousands of people I interact with, they have lost faith in the medical system, especially in doctors. Like that step, like that pedestal that we put them on, for a lot of people it's been gone, especially for what happened in 2020, 2021, 2022. But do you feel the same? Have you lost respect for the doctors because they're still administrating something that they don't even know? And that's not an excuse. You don't get to tell me that you're naive,
Right.
because I
Well,
don't, that is not an excuse.
yeah, I mean, what I'll say is when I started looking into this, I worked in an ER. And I would ask them, like, how many things have you reported to VAERS? And they'd be like, what's VAERS? I'm like, wait, what do you mean? Let's backtrack. What do you mean? What's VAERS? And then like just there would be like an injury where someone like did something where they would need tetanus, and I'd say, this really isn't the best time to do that because of this, and they're like, well, what do you mean? And it's like you start to realize that the information that they're giving surrounding vaccines is so limited, and I think I can understand that and kind of respect that they're learning a lot. There's a lot on their plate when they're at medical school, but then the ownership is on them. So after school, when you're given this information or when you are being questioned and you choose to not investigate it on your own, then I lose respect, because that's the time that you really have the ability to say, listen, I may not have learned that. I should know it. I need to know it for my patients and my practice and whatever. And I'm just choosing to not know it. And I think it comes down to one, they're afraid of losing their job. And then also, it's going to be, like you said, about swallowing that pill, like realistically knowing that, hey, I could have potentially injured several people, many people, because of my lack of knowledge about this product and just blindly following it and believing it. And then they have to now come to that realization. And I think that that's something too, like with parents, there's parents that have injured children, but maybe it's really hard to say, like, is something I did the reason that this happened because I didn't know. And I mean, parents are different because they are trusting somebody that should know, but it all comes back to the research aspect of it needs to be on each individual, unfortunately. And they really need to take ownership for that. So when it comes to physicians, like, I take what they say with a grain of salt. Like, they recommend something, but I'm gonna double check your recommendation. I'm gonna read that package insert. Like, my second pregnancy, because my first was so early, they recommended me get this like shot starting at 20 weeks every couple weeks to make sure that my second baby didn't come early. And I was like, what is this? What are you talking about? What shot? So I said, what's the name of the thing? And let me look it up and I'll get back to you. And first of all, even just that, the doctor looked at me like maternal fetal medicine, this like high specialist looked at me like confused that I asked even that stuff. And then when I came back for my next appointment, I decided to decline. And he asked me why. And I said, well, the package insert said the number one side effect was a miscarriage. And the second was preterm birth, which is what you're trying to prevent. I said, so neither had a great outcome. And statistically, it didn't change much using the shot versus not. And these are the ingredients that I'm uncomfortable with. And he's like, where did you learn all of that? And I was like, I just read the insert that came with the product. And he was just so like flabbergasted that I even did that. And now they no longer even recommend that product to women. But like, these are things that unfortunately we have to advocate for ourselves, you know?
That's one thing that happened. So when my son was in the hospital, I was speaking to the nurses, I was speaking to the doctors that were taking care of him, and they knew, everybody knew, because we were the only one there that would not vaccinate their children. And I'm very vocal about this. I have no shame. If you ask me why, I might explain, depends on my mood, I might explain or just tell you to take a hike. I don't have to explain this to you. You do not, I do not report to you. I don't have to give you why. I'm not interested in this conversation. My son's sick. Go along, move along. But I had the conversation with one of the doctors, and she's like, I wouldn't admit that to anybody else, but I understand. I'm starting to question it because you can't question it. That was one of the doctors that told me, and we were lucky. I'm happy that I mentioned it because she recommended me to a doctor that could see my son every month now. We've seen her 6 times. And the first time we step into the office, she's old school, right? She's like 70, 75 years old. And she's like, so when you guys have planned, have you guys scheduled your 2 months shot appointment? We're like, no, and we're not going to do it. And we told her that we weren't comfortable. She's like, I'm a doctor. At the end of the day, I find that very surprising, but I will never not give treatment or not see your son because he's not vaccinated. So you know what? Okay, she joked about it the first few times. So you're still not vaccinated, are you? But it's worth having those conversations, not being ashamed of what you believe in, because there are people out there that actually believe the same. And I think that the 2020, 21, 22, 22 period has made a lot of people question even doctors. So never be scared to say what you got to say, because at the end of the day, I would much rather insult somebody or hurt somebody's feelings than to hurt my son or hurt
Oh, for
my
sure.
children.
Yeah. And I
Like,
mean,
no,
you don't know who's open either. Like, you know what I mean? Like, who's gonna say, you know what? Let me hear more about that. Because like, for instance, I don't know what happened to that OB because I hadn't seen her after that, like telling her about the insert and how it wasn't safety studied. But clearly she didn't know. But now she knows. So now she can't hide behind that. And like, I also set up myself to have a directed blood donation for my third pregnancy because I needed a blood transfusion with my first. And I was afraid during COVID, I didn't want COVID vaccinated blood. So I set up my own directed donation just in case, because again, I just didn't want that. And when I was talking to the OB about it, she was confused why I would need to do this. And I explained to her about the COVID vaccine. And I mean, these are things, and she was super open to it, and just like, I had no idea about these concerns. And she's like, could you send me the research that you've done? I'd love to read it. So I actually was able to give her, and again, I don't know what happened with that, but I sent her the information. So like, we don't know what waves we're going to make from just kind of dropping little things in the bucket. So I feel like there's a place where, yes, you can say like, this is my opinion, I'm not going to do it. Like, if you can tell, I feel like right away, like, are they just doing it to do it, or do they actually care? And sometimes no is enough. like I'm not doing it, no. But then sometimes if they truly want to learn, I'm open to explaining, you know.
You have to read the crowd. If you
Mhm.
create enough content, that's something that I've learned over time. Who's worth having discussions with and who will never be open to your argument. I don't waste my time, and that's no different in real life. That's what I was saying. There's some people I'll just say, you know what? Nope. The conversation finishes there. You're not happy about it. That's okay. We can leave. I'm not. That's fine. Thank you for letting me
Mhm.
know that you're not okay with this because I'm not okay with it either. So thank you.
Mhm.
Are you happy? Because one of the things you guys have in the US that we don't have in Canada, you have a guy by the name of RFK Jr. that is very against vaccination, like very against vaccination. He's probably the first really political guy at his level to bluntly say it with no shame at all. What are you happy to hear that they changed the children vaccination schedule? And as per Aaron's theory, because I know where you're going to go with this, because you're probably going to say the same around the same lines as what I said. But I said that to Aaron Siri when we recorded together, and he's like, "That's just the first wave." So it's like, what? Because I asked him, I'm like, why not all of them? But at least, as he said, it's a start. Is that how you
Yeah.
feel?
I feel like I think when RFK came in, everybody expected like him to just like throw a bomb and like everything would be crazy and everything would be fixed and mandates would go away and all of this stuff. But that's to me was unrealistic because he's an attorney, so he's strategic, right? So we want to make sure that whatever we implement is going to withstand him leaving the office he's in. Because if somebody else comes in there that's the opposite of him and they want to change it all, you have to educate and inform the public so that they are also bought in, so that this kind of change lasts long term, right? That's kind of like my thought about it. And I think the way he's going about it is smart. And I think that it is slow. And I also feel, yes, this is in waves because, to just say we're changing everything would be like, I mean, they're already freaking out. And I don't even feel like it was a great change, but it wasn't like mind blowing because there's ones that are like assumed to be safe and like the important ones, which I don't think any other are important, but they kept the important ones. Do you know what I mean? So they had to like kind of piecemeal it that way. So I feel like what he's doing there is acceptable. What's kind of frustrating to me is these other agencies like the AAP or different states that are saying we're just not going to listen to what they're saying anymore and we're going to do our own thing. So that's another bridge we have to cross. But as far as like what he's doing now, I think it makes sense too because it also is going to, I believe, touch on the 1986 Act. Because realistically, for years we've been saying let's repeal that act so that manufacturers are liable again. But there's so much tied to it that to break apart that act would be really challenging because that's where the VAERS, that's like the vaccine court is in there. Like there's so much tied to that act that by doing this and taking things off of the recommended schedule, it creates like a weird gray area. And I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know exactly, but how I understand it is that if it's routinely recommended, it's protected. But if it's not, it may not be. It may open itself up. So this is like the backdoor path to be able to help people get to where they need to be legally, right? So to me it's strategic, it's smart. I'm excited to see what else comes of it, and I'm glad that he's showcasing different things. And I know that what is it? Peter McCullough's group supposedly is coming out with something about the MMR that they're going to release. So I don't know what that's going to be, but it's basically like the little breadcrumbs that they're dropping is that after they release what they release, that it should be pulled from the market. So I'm excited to see what that is. That's obviously not released yet, but I think there's just so many things coming down the pipeline that can be used to really completely have everything be optional, no mandates. And I would love for states to have the rights to be able to not even need an exemption.
Aaron alluded to what you said, and that's where I was going with this. So I'm happy that you're aware because it's not being talked about a lot. But he alluded because we had that conversation when I said I don't want any recommended vaccination because my kids are never gonna take those recommended vaccination no matter what you tell me. But he alluded to the fact that you cannot break apart the act. It would be too complicated legally. But if you remove them from the routine vaccine, he alluded to the fact that they might not be covered anymore by the liability protection that they have, which, if that's the case, it's absolutely brilliant
Mm-hmm.
what they did. That is some serious lowering right there. Just, oh, it's protected by that, let's remove them from there. They haven't
Mm-hmm.
removed them all, but he did also allude to the fact that this was just the first round. And just like RFK, I think he's very methodical. Like, he's very intelligent. Like, Aaron Siri's a smart
Mm-hmm.
dude. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he is a very, very smart dude. And he's doing it in a way where it's hard to argue with him. Because at
Yeah,
the end
I
of the
mean,
day, they're not removing the access to vaccination. They're just saying, you can't force me. And
mm-hmm.
that's what's important. That's what informed consent is all about. You want to do it? Awesome. That's on you. But you have no rights to force me.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, it's really crazy that this is like the one product that they do force. Like, I don't understand. It's not like, oh, you have an ear infection, you better take these antibiotics or you're going to get in trouble. Like, you have a choice with everything else. Why is this such a hot topic? And I mean, when you look at the ones that are required for school, most of them don't even stop transmission. So, like, what leg do they have to stand on? Because to me, that would be it. That would be like, listen, you're protecting other people, you're in a school environment, there's other kids there could be immunocompromised kids, like whatever, they're, you heard the same things I've heard. But realistically, if they don't stop transmission, then why are we pressing them so hard? Or if they're live virus vaccines that can actually cause the illness, like chickenpox, when kids get their chickenpox vaccines, maybe we should be saying, hey, you need to abstain from school for 2 weeks after you get that shot because of the immunocompromised in this school. So there's just a lot of things that are broken, and I hope that a lot of that starts to come to light and people really see what is behind these.
One of the I'll ask you one more question, because this to me, again, I don't understand the I'm a big fan of psychology. I love to understand what people think, and especially why they think the way they think. And to me, it seems that big pharma is at war with natural immunity. They want to scare us into believing that it doesn't serve a purpose, that it is not the only way to get lifelong immunity is through natural immunity. Do you think that's what they're doing? Do you think that there's a bit more than meet the eyes, than good people trying to do good, that there is some type of an agenda, some type of a narrative behind this all?
I
Feel
mean,
free not to answer the question, but I'm a conspiracy theorist. Like,
that's okay.
there's a skeleton with a tinfoil hat right there, and that's what I am, right?
I think there's layers. I think that,
Sure.
like, pharma as an industry has not the best intentions when it comes to vaccines. But I think that people that make vaccines don't necessarily always know, like, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing, if that makes sense. So, like, I was at a Christmas party once and I met a virologist. Didn't know she was a virologist when I started the conversation. And she asked me, like, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I share things on social media. And like, I try to tread lightly because I'm just like, I don't know where this is going.
I'm
Turns
an anti-vax influencer.
turns out she's a virologist, and I'm like, great. But she's like, I don't vaccinate my own children. And I was like, wait, you make them but you don't vaccinate your own kids? Like, so that was already like, okay, great, tell me why. But she's like, she's like, we make one component and then we assume the other people make the other component. Like, how it all comes together, they everybody believes that the other group is doing the right thing, and then it comes together in a magical potion that everything's great, right? So I think, like, those people don't have bad intentions. I think that they really want to help people. They get into the industry because they whatever. But I think the people that, like, make the money off of the pharmaceutical products themselves, they know, like the Colleen Boyles, who was the one who, yeah, like, they know that there's things happening. She's not necessarily pharma, but like, the people higher up know that there's negative things happening, and they still continue to do it for money, for I mean, I guess, clout. I don't even know. Like when it comes to the CDC, if they ever admitted that they knew something and now they hid it, then now there goes all of their reliability.
Yep.
So there's just so many things that would crumble if they start to say like we knew and we hid it. Like even though like there's been whistleblowers and obviously we know that there's things that came out, like we know, but realistically I think there's so many tiers that it's not a black and white answer necessarily, if that makes sense. um but I do think that there's definitely evil behind vaccine stuff just because you're creating all of these other illnesses. It has nothing to do with immunity. It has nothing to do with protecting a child. They know if I'm going to vaccinate a 2-month-old and I can potentially give them diabetes from the Hib vaccine or whatever, I'm now creating a client for the rest of their life. So they're not making a buku dollars on that one vaccine, but now they have that person that they're going to have forever, or someone that develops MS or different things that happen down the road, the cancers with the SV40. Like there's just so many. And again, not trying to conspiracy because it's really not. These are all documented things that happen. Like when you look at the package insert, it tells you all of the possible side effects that are going to happen. And these aren't there just for fun. Like I think sometimes people think, oh, they have to list all of those just because. No, they have to be causally related to be on the insert. So that means there's really a connection. So all of these vaccines that they're saying they're going to help your child develop immunity, I don't think that they care about that. They care about who else can they benefit from later from whatever happens now. Right.
They're looking for customers.
Mm-hmm.
Lifelong customers is what they're looking for. Before we ended, did you say beaucoup? Is that what you said?
But what?
You said a word. I thought you spoke. You said a word in French for a second.
Oh,
You
I
said,
don't know. Maybe it was
oh,
just the way I said something. No, I don't know. I
so you
don't
don't
speak
speak French.
French. I don't.
So you don't speak French. That's the question. Well,
No.
I do appreciate your time. It was great speaking to you. I really hope the little guy, the little girl, I don't know if you know,
Boy.
it's a little boy.
Mm-hmm.
The father must be happy. We all want boys, right? How many
Mm-hmm.
sons do you have?
I
You
have
have four
one.
kids.
I have one boy,
So
two
it's
girls,
gonna
and then
be
this will
two.
be,
So,
yeah, bookends. Mm-hmm.
and then you're done. Is that
Yeah, yeah. I
is?
mean, yeah. I mean, if I was younger, I'd probably keep having them. But I just turned 40 this year, so I feel like I'm at my peak with the babies. So
So Rusty caught it. Boku. Did you say that? Bookoo?
I don't know. I don't
Because
know.
I heard that too. Boku. It's not spelled that way, but boku in French means a lot, many.
Oh,
And it
I'll
fitted with what you were saying. It actually fitted. So I'm like,
have to
oh,
watch it
ain't,
back.
ain't she cool? She's speaking French and all. I don't know if there was something you wanted to speak about. If there's something you want to put out there before we end this episode. So the floor is yours, and then we'll end it.
Sure. I mean, there's nothing really specific, but the biggest thing that I feel like I get asked on my platform is like which vaccines are safe and which ones should I get, which I feel like we've kind of covered here. But that question does have to be with the parent, but spend the time to figure it out. Like you can take your time to look into this before you make a decision because realistically, like spacing them out, delaying them, the risk is always there. So what you need to do is look into them, feel confident and comfortable moving forward, not from listening to me or listening to somebody else. It has to be your decision because you have to be comfortable with that for the rest of your life. So find good resources, look into it, and figure out what's going to make you feel the most comfortable moving forward. And then also, just because you started doesn't mean you have to continue. So I think that that's a trick that they play on people a lot is like, well, we started the series, let us at least finish the series. But you can stop at any time for any reason. The only negative thing that would happen is nothing, right? So you can stop whenever you want. Those are the two things that like I always get asked, like, can I stop? I already started, or which ones? But you have to make that decision on your own after you really spend the time and feel your own comfort level with it.
Couldn't agree with you more. Well said. Thank you very much for your time. Continue doing what you're doing because you're doing great work. And for the people out there, Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. Make sure to like, make sure to comment, make sure to reshare the stream. If you've never heard of us before, make sure to follow the platform. And Angela's information is in the description below. So make sure to go give her a follow. And if you want more information on informed consent when it comes to vaccination, look in the description below. All the information for Vaccine Choice Canada is also there. On that note, thank you, Angela. Thank you to everyone. And I will see my audience in like 6 minutes.